Good morning, Toronto. That's where the conference is, right? Yes. We wish we were there with you guys, but instead we are here in sunny Beverly Hills, Michigan. So it's snowy, and it's actually a snow day.
It is.
So we have come in to record this video to share a little bit with you guys about our journey with NPDL and our curriculums and our schools. So I'll start. I am Christy Booth, and I have been teaching English Language Arts and a few other classes at Berkshire Middle School in Beverly Hills, Michigan for the last 13 years.
Time flies.
And it does fly. And I have had the privilege of working under Joanna McKinney's leadership. So Joanna, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. Again, we so wish we were there with you. This is the best we could do this year, so we're excited to be able to talk about something that we're both passionate about with NPDL in this sort of format, so at least we feel like we can connect in with you. My name is Joanna McKinney. I have been in the Birmingham School District now for a while. I worked with Christy over at Berkshire Middle School for 6.5 years, and during that time we had an opportunity to partner on NPDL. So our format this morning, since we're not able to do like a live or an interactive piece, is just going to be kind of conversation wise, and we're hoping by the time you are done listening to this little snippet that you just feel a little encouraged and maybe feel comfortable in taking a risk and seeing how starting small can really pay off at the end in big yields. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. It was really exciting when we first started this work because it was very simple and it was very small. Everyone sitting in this room probably has already seen that small 1-minute Rubik's Cube video. And that's all it took for us to get started. We're fortunate to live in Michigan where we're in Oakland County, and so Larry Thomas has worked on NPDL, and he brought it to our county, and we were able to watch that small video, and that was enough that kind of just instilled a little bit of a fire, like, wow, I've been in this profession 20 years now, and at that time, you're kind of wondering, like, how do I keep myself current and keep myself fresh? And sometimes you would fluctuate. We're both in secondary around, what's our purpose? Is it just the content of drilling, or what's our bigger purpose on why we do this work? And we found this very liberating, and we simply started with a small group at Berkshire, showed this same Rubik's Cube video, and allowed some time and space and curiosity. And that's really how NPDL started at Berkshire Middle School, and then subsequently has started in multiple places within our district under the direction of our central leadership.
Yeah. So I was fortunate to be one of those teachers that Joanna kind of nudged and said, hey, I think you might like to do some of this work. So teaching language arts, I love it. I love the stories. I love the characters. But as Joanna said, secondary education, and the students started asking, so what? So what are we, why are we reading these stories and these characters? And yes, we're reading for many, many reasons, but the kids that aren't naturally strong readers and writers and not that curious, we're really struggling. So I was ready, hungry for something like, what else is there? There has to be something bigger than just this. And so through going through professional development, we have a school in our district, West Maple, that's a little further ahead in the journey. So I was able to go there and see kind of what they were doing around the 6 C's, and went to, I'll never forget, in Troy, right? We had that first meeting, Meg came, and we picked up all of this paperwork with the 6 C's and the learning design rubrics and learning progressions, and I just remember looking at it all and thinking, wow, this is a lot, but it's good stuff because the 6 C's, those learning progressions, put to words things that you're thinking you want to measure, but it's so hard to assess students on. So we watched a few videos, as Joanna said, and saw students being curious around the work.
And I feel like it just gave us permission to do what we knew in our heart was the reason we were called to this work. Because when you get into the grind, or maybe influenced by like standardized testing and some of that, you felt like we were kind of nudged down a certain path. And I felt like NPDL came in and put a little pause there for a moment to make us think like, hey, how really do we want to have our work be, and what do we really want our students to take away when they've had their experiences with us. And our building had already been a really heavy building on relationships. Character education is the foundation in our school, so there was this natural fit of like, we know we believe in all this relationship stuff. Sometimes we struggled with how to make that content to it, but once we had some opportunity to play with NPDL, we found natural connections. And I think, Christy, you could speak to some of those natural connections that happened.
Yeah, I think because character has been important for our school, and as Joanna said, building relationships with students and with each other, I found it really natural to just jump in the learning design rubric. This section of learning partnerships really spoke to me. Looking into our community, I found that we have great resources here. So it was the end of our science fiction unit. It was kind of a boring gray January, as most of them are in
Michigan,
Beverly Hills, Michigan. And I just sat down and we had finished talking about scientific inventions, reading Ray Bradbury, and what are the benefits and the consequences of these inventions. And I thought, let me see if we have any local inventors. So I simply Googled, I don't even know, inventors, local inventors, and up pops this Michigan Coalition of Inventors. Who knew? And I get them
right in the backyard.
Right in our backyard. Yeah, right. Literally, the city next to us, right down the street. Some of our students live there. I got a message for contact information for the creator of Phase 10, who eventually came to speak to my students. And you guys, I was like a kid in a candy store because I grew up playing Phase 10. Did you?
Yes, very much. Yeah. The dice version and
the card version. Yeah. He's done well. It's a great game. If you haven't played, you should get it. But he spoke to the students, and I saw students who, were on the sidelines when we were reading the stories and talking about the authors. All of a sudden, they're asking question after question after question. What about this? And when did you think of this? And you guys, he thought of the game after playing Uno with his family when he was 12 years old. When he told the kids he could have retired at age 22, they were like, oh, we're all going home to create games. But that gave us this incentive, like, you can create this invention at your age. And it was so inspiring. So the students, went on with their inventions. And after doing that, I thought, okay, I can't just do a regular part of our curriculum the same way. Now that I've introduced this learning partnership, are there other things that we can do or build on in our next unit of study?
It was like making things come alive, and Christy would be coming down to the office and connecting and chatting because she felt like passionate about something she was just curious about in a different way. So it was really exciting to watch this little pebble in the water, because the next thing you know, this inventor is coming into our office, and then the front office secretary is like, who is this guy? Why is he here? And then some kids would be talking in the hallway about how we just heard an inventor in our class. So it was these small seedlings that all of a sudden created this amazing opportunity for our students to be able to be connected in. So
yeah, it was great. So we couldn't stop there. And that's when I thought locally, but even more locally, was our work that we did with Joanna, actually. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your side gig?
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. So I built my family through adoption, and my oldest two boys we adopted from Ethiopia. And so in my personal life, I've had this real connection to their birth country, because it's always been a philosophy of ours that our kids would know their birth country. They would never be a tourist in their own country. So it's kind of forced us to stay connected. But what I didn't realize was how my personal life and professional life would collide, because when we think about all of us, we're total people. So even though we have a professional passion, all of us are exploring things outside it. And this, to me, were this aha moment with NPDL of like, well, it doesn't have to be too separate. We can bring these things together, and that's how we're all connected in the universe and the world anyways.
Yes.
So anyhow, my boys have kept me connected to Ethiopia. We subsequently started a care point 3-4 years ago with partnering with Children's Hope Chest. I did that with my family, which is an opportunity for us to partner with a community of 150 kids and help break the cycle of poverty. But this whole process personally helped me to learn a lot about privilege and what we had in Birmingham schools, just access at our fingertips, that basic things like books, and that weren't readily available. And in rural parts of Ethiopia, Christy and I had a lot of discussion, and this was even before we got involved in NPDL, about these donkey libraries, where there would be these donkeys, and they would have books that would go on their backs, and then they would be brought into a community. People would try to read these books, and that was a form of literacy bring out into the rural areas. So it seemed like a natural connection when Christy and I were talking, and she really is the one that came up with the idea. She knew I was involved in this work, and then she found the connection and invited me in, which then got me excited about the work that she again was doing in the classroom and forming another partnership.
Yeah, forming another partnership that was right in our office. So when Joanna came and spoke to the students about this CarePoint and this library and the donkey library, I mean, our eyes were just opened, you know, and you're thankful, and at the same time you're given this charge, like, what can we do to help? And so seeing Joanna and building this relationship with her and seeing her passion about Ethiopia, with Ethiopia and her family, we wanted to jump on board. And so the students naturally, again, got curious, and my administration naturally said, yeah, jump in. And this time we got to work together, which was great. So we started our realistic fiction unit. You know, you've got the content standards and you've got your unit of study, and this fit in really well. We watched The Danger of a Single Story. And so all of the stories that we read in our unit, the short stories, had to do with learning about people from other countries and other time periods, and what do we learn about that time in that country that we didn't know before. And so Joanna's opening up our eyes to another country. So our last project, our writing project, was to write a memoir or a narrative about your life, with maybe you as the main character or someone like you, so that you could share your story with others. Now, that sounds all well and good when it comes to the teacher and you're collecting the essays and grading them and giving them back, but it's even better when you're actually able to tell the kids, you know what, your books aren't just going to be kept in my bag for grading and returned to you. Do you want to share a little bit with them about what was happening, how the donkey libraries, kind of your friend started another library?
So when one of my, as I mentioned before, I'm pretty now connected with in Ethiopia, and I have a friend who I'd met, like, networked through the Ethiopia world, where she was working on launching a library project within a rural area in Ethiopia. And so here she has taken on this whole life of her own in creating a physical structure for where books can be stored. And I'm very fortunate that every summer we go back to Ethiopia to visit our CarePoint, and there was this natural fit where when Christy was working with her students in the classroom, that those stories weren't going to just stay in Christy's office. We were going to have them physically travel across the ocean in my suitcase to Ethiopia to go into this library. And just that moment, just that small thing, is what sparked and had more purpose for the students. So the students were no longer writing for an audience of one, the classroom teacher. The students were writing for an audience of people that they had no idea. And what was exciting about it is that Google had just added Amharic, which is the language of Ethiopia, onto Google Translate. And it was like, you know, just the timing worked out amazingly, so that way her students were able to incorporate that into your process.
Yeah. So we had learning partnerships, we were leveraging digital, we were using great practices, and the 6 C's, the character, collaboration, communication, I mean, that just lended itself to pushing our work in a positive, effective direction. And so at the last day of class, it was the end of the school year, students were finishing their stories, they were reading their stories, and we were packaging the stories and giving them to Joanna to take to Ethiopia to sit on and hopefully be taken off the bookshelves by people there. So what a cool thing this NPDL work is. It makes our work authentic, it sparks curiosity, and I think we'll end with just advice we have for you guys as you're starting out or continuing in the journey. So
I think from a systems end of it, you know, as an administrator, I have now worked in a few different buildings, and in each time we've brought it out, it's been with that single video. And it hasn't been about a lot of, maybe a small anchor article, but it really hasn't been about that. It's been about creating time and space, centering back on our why and our purpose.
Yes.
And then when you enter into some of those affective-based skills and think about all the competencies, it just makes sense. And so for us, it really wasn't any huge formality, and it wasn't like we're bringing all 60 staff members on. It was simply like, okay, let's show this video. Who naturally walks back around and wants to talk about it more? How can we create a 2-hour time where we can meet and just brainstorm? and then just play. And then when you have 3 teachers playing, those 3 teachers start talking to each other, and they're talking about their play. And then they're in the hallway during passing time of 4 minutes in middle school, which is crazy, and they hear the kids talking, and the next thing you know, the social studies teacher is talking to the other social studies teacher. So it's truly that single step lasts a lifetime. It was that sort of approach, and I've seen that happen as different on-ramps now in the 3 different buildings that I've been in, and it's been really exciting to watch that it's taken one small Rubik's Cube inspiration to then make it launch.
Yes.
That would be my systems piece of advice. How about you,
And then
Christy?
given the support, jump in. Just pick one C, or pick one part of the learning design. Maybe it's a partnership. Maybe it's a learning environment. Maybe it's leveraging digital. Just how to use technology effectively. Right. Just pick one spot and jump in and watch the kids light up. Yeah, and you're going to be hooked.
Yeah, the kids take you. I just feel so fortunate. I know Christy and I have really enjoyed this work. Even though we're not in the same school anymore, we still get to collaborate around this because it pulls you, and I know we both feel reignited in our profession around it. So we hope you have a wonderful conference. Thank you so much for the opportunity to everybody on the NPDL side to help make us feel like we're part of it, even though we're physically not there with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, guys. We're going to go play in the snow.
Bye.